Hello, welcome again. This is the part B video. So if you clicked on the wrong one, go back and click on the part A video. We're going to be continuing our notes from part D in our first application problem. So these next couple questions have to do with knowing vocabulary, knowing the definitions of words. Hopefully you already have a little bit of an understanding because we did a couple of examples in the Kahoot. And so the Kahoot hopefully helped you to understand a little bit about these vocab terms, but let's take a look at them. Remember, whenever it says represent in this problem, it's asking you to explain what it means in the real world. And so it says, what is the y-intercept of your equation? So y-intercept, what is the y-intercept? That's just a very simple question. It's asking you, what is the y-intercept, right? That's it. You don't have to explain anything. The second part of the question is, what does the y-intercept represent in this problem? So you take what the number is for the y-intercept, you go back to the question, and you figure out what it actually means in real life. So let's talk about this word y-intercept. I usually write it y-int because I'm lazy, just like all of the best mathematicians. One way to say y-intercept is that it is the b value. Well, we know that the b value is the b in y equals mx plus b. So very simply, the answer to this question is 58. Okay, another way to think about the y-intercept that will help us explain what it represents in this problem is that it is the starting value, or the starting place of your scenario. So when x equals 0 or time starts, that's what 58 represents. So just to say it one more way, it's when x equals 0, it tells you what y is equal to. So in this case, we need to understand that the b value is 58, but what does it represent in the question? Well, it's the starting place. So when x equals 0, it's what y equals. So when we start time is when school starts in our scenario. And what y equals is our battery, how much battery we have left. So the idea here is we want to write a sentence that represents everything we just talked about. So we just said basically that we had 58% battery when we started school. So when we started school, we had 58% battery. So I guess I shouldn't say we, they, the person in the story, they started school, they had 58% battery. So in order to get full credit for this question, I'm going to show you what you need to make sure you say. You need to have something about starting, okay? You need to understand that the 58 represents something about when you started, and you need to have the unit for the y value. And you can go up here if you forget and realize that your y value, the coordinate, represents a percent. So those are the two things you need to have about the y-intercept in order to get it correct. So make sure you're taking all the notes, writing all that down. You need to have all that written down in order to get full credit for your notes. All right, let's go on to the next one. The next one is the same kind of question. It says, what is the slope of your equation? That's very simple, right? We could just look at the equation and figure that out. But here's the hard part. What does the slope represent in our problem? So the word slope, we can say what it means a few different ways. In our equation, the slope is m, right? So the m value. Sometimes we're going to talk about slope as being a rate or maybe a speed at which something is happening. And it's really important, here's the most important thing for this kind of question, is to understand that the slope is the rise over the run, or just like we did in our equation, we need to understand that is the change or the y, the two y's being subtracted over the two x's being subtracted. And so we need to have the y units on top and the x units on the bottom. So for example, our slope is -1/5 when we had it reduced. Well, and highlight that in red, that's from our equation. You can see it up there. That would be this, and that would be our m value. So the y is on top. Y is the percent of battery, and the x units are minutes. That'd be how many minutes have gone by. And so we could say, if we were thinking about this, it's negative. We're going down 1% battery for every 5 minutes that goes by. So we need to take that and rewrite it as a complete sentence to get credit for this question, because it says, what does it represent? We need to explain what it represents. We're going to say, after 5 minutes, the battery goes down 1%. So that would be a really great explanation of our slope. Let me show you the things that you need to have in your explanation in order to get this question right. You need to have the understanding that you have 5 attached to the unit of minutes. You need to have the number 1 attached to the unit of percents. And you need to understand that it's a rate. So it's after 5 minutes, the battery goes down by 1%. Lots of other ways to say that. For every 5 minutes, the battery goes down 1%. The battery goes down 1% for every 5 minutes that goes by. Lots and lots of different ways to say the same thing. The last thing you need to have here is that you need to have whether the slope is positive or negative in your explanation. So if we were charging our phone, it would say go up 1% every 5 minutes. That's a very slow charge. But since we're losing battery and we don't have a charger, it's going down 1% every 5 minutes. So make sure you have the up or down in your explanation for slope as well. All right, you guys, buckle up because this next one is a little bit difficult. So we are going to be talking about this page is kind of like a challenge page. So if you understood everything that we talked about so far, awesome. This is where you're stepping it up. This is like get to that A level of math. So prepare yourself, buckle in. It says calculate the x-intercept of this scenario. So again, what is the x-intercept? And then it says, what does it represent in the real world? So this is the first thing for part D and E. We didn't have to calculate anything. For this, we do. X-intercept is the solution to the problem 0 equals mx plus b. So no matter what equation you have, if you have 0 equals mx plus b, that'll get you to the x-intercept. So let's solve for it, and then let's talk about what it means. So for our equation, which we had up here, y equals -1/5 x plus 58. So we're going to say 0 equals -1/5 times x plus 58. That's our equation, and we're going to solve it for x. Now this is kind of challenging, but just realize that it's the same exact process as a two-step equation. We're just adding from top to bottom. We created a 0. Remember, you want to get rid of the group of 1s first before you divide or multiply. We have -58 equals -1/5 x. Now here's where things get a little challenging. If you have a fraction, you could always just say, okay, I'm going to divide by -1/5. divide by -1/5, and you can put that into your calculator. You would have -58 divided by -1/5, like that. There's slightly fancier ways to do it as well that'll give you the same answer. If you're using the fancy way that we learned a little bit ago, we go times -5/1. You always multiply by the reciprocal, so you go times -5/1. That cancels both of those parts, and you would do the same thing multiplying by -5, and you would get the same answer. So 290 is equal to x, and x is in minutes. So we're going to say this is 290 minutes is our answer there. But what does it represent in the real world? Well, this is another way to say x-intercept is to say the end point. Or you can think about it when your story is over. A lot of times that's what's going on. And so 290 minutes, in our case, that's when y is equal to 0. So our battery is equal to 0. So we can say our battery will be at 0%, or you could say run out after 290 minutes. Okay. All right, so the key things that you need to have in here to get the question correct is that you understand that it's your battery ran out, or 0%, have the idea that y is 0, and you need to have the 290, you have to have the unit of minutes there. Okay, sorry, I had a glitch there, but let's keep going. We're gonna go through these next few questions. So the idea when you get to these questions is you need to pick out the information and decide if the question is giving you a y value or an x value. Here, it says it's 20% battery. That's a y value, and it's saying how many minutes. So it's asking you to solve for x. So again, it's just a two-step equation. We're going to do -58, always adding from top to bottom. We want to create 0. This would be -32 is equal to -1/5 x. Multiply by 5 on both sides, and we get 160 is equal to x. So this is saying that it takes 160 minutes, because it's an x value, to get to a 20% battery notification. All right, on this next one, you could do the same thing where it says, okay, it's telling you how long you're gonna be at school. Will your battery make it? Let me tell you, your battery will make it, because 6.5 hours is 390 minutes. And we know, your battery won't make it, and we know from the x-intercept that we just found that it's 290 minutes is all the battery we have. However, if you were kind of feeling silly and you wanted to plug in 390 into the equation, you would get a negative y value, which means that you have negative battery, which isn't possible because your phone turns off at 0. All right, last but not least, I'm gonna power through this last part. What you need to do is go to Desmos, and you're gonna type in using the keyboard inside Desmos. Use the divide symbol to make a fraction, press over and then X, and type in your equation. Now we're going to check our answer by putting the original 2 points that we had at the beginning into Desmos. Click on the label, and it was 75, and it went down to 43. Oops, gotta put in those parentheses, label, and you can see that those 2 values are on your graph. You also can double check that your y-intercept and your x-intercept are correct, and then take a screenshot and insert it into your notes. Thanks for sticking with me, guys.